and how much cooperation kind of do you want and hope from them?
Right. The program assumes that any survey classes that students would take, they're already eligible to take. So, for example, if you went liberal arts, you couldn't take an upper division business class, you wouldn't be eligible. So, or you couldn't take a class in the School of Architecture because you wouldn't be eligible. So students have to take classes that they would normally be allowed to take. There are instances where undergrad students can take classes in the law school or classes, upper division business classes. It just depends. If there was an initiative to increase the amount of the ability of students to take graduate level classes, I think that would be a great complement to the program. But that's really beyond the scope of what the initial proposal is doing.
So in essence, you don't expect much from the graduate school to help?
I would not at this point. I think that's worth looking at, but it's not really within the scope of this initial committee.
Okay, that is good. Are there any more questions? Okay, seeing none, take this back to your Hank. Is there a motion to extend?
No, not really.
Okay, that takes us back to your council.
Chelsea, I move to take SR 1005 off the table.
So you move to
Take it off
5 off the table. Okay. I know. Okay, there's a motion to take SR 205 off the table. Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, moving on to SR 207. In support of faculty emergency and safety preparedness.
What are we going to vote on this thing? This legislation doesn't come off the table. It cannot be voted on until it's taken this petition. Yeah. That's all I was doing. I don't understand how this was made.
Yeah, and we have perfect sense to make it work.
That's why I want to move to it as I can. As long as you don't do it.
Okay, we have SR 207. You also
I'm Lily Garcia, Faculty Affairs Co-Chair. I'm Mary Angel, Young Co-Chair. I'm Lisa, an at-large.
I'm Mark, an at-large.
I'm Kristen, an at-large.
Okay, so we're presenting Senate Resolution 1007 in support of faculty emergency and safety preparedness. So basically, the background is, in light of recent events, they brought to our attention the need for a more uniform faculty response in emergency situations at the University of Texas. And the disparities in this response of faculty and staff place members of the campus and the community at risk. So the purpose of our bill is to call for the creation of new detailed resources geared towards faculty emergency response training and to ensure the safety of faculty, staff, and students.
Okay, and so the current standard. Now you may ask, what resources currently exist and why are they inadequate? Well, let me tell you. The first one is an 11-minute video that is narrated by 2 policemen with random input and acting from students in a classroom. The second one is a protocol list that is numbered 1 through 4 with sub-bullets, basically all saying, lock your doors and call UCPD. Now, while the video protocols do provide basic guideline procedures for how to react to emergency situations, they do not provide a detailed plan of action for faculty. They leave it to the discretion of the faculty member to determine a plan of action and therefore would not resolve the disparities in the responses.
For a quick summary, faculty response to the incident was unorganized and revealed a lack of a structured response plan. Faculty can help alert or mitigate emergency situations by being aware and informed. In order to provide an orderly response, it is necessary to create new and improved resources for directing faculty response, and therefore this resolution calls for the creation of said resources and their distribution to faculty through departments.
So our whereas statements can be summarized into 4 main points. First, in spite of recent events, a need for a uniform emergency plan should be created. Law enforcement agencies performed commendably, however. However, there were disparities in the responses of faculty, and these disparities could have put members of the campus community in danger. And second, the UTPD offers training resources, but they are at an inadequate level. And third, comparison schools, including the University of Wisconsin and University of Michigan, already have appropriate faculty training measures in place for handling such events. And fourth, the University of Texas should build upon the example of their peer institutions by developing a faculty-specific emergency plan.
So in summary, this legislation just resolves that the Senate calls for the creation of faculty emergency preparedness resources, and that these resources be sent to department chairs, and then those will delegate them to their faculty members.
Okay, with that, there's 5 minutes for Q&A.
It's really not a question, but more of a suggestion. Do you think you could sort of integrate wording about new faculty training and maybe risk management into this, instead of just saying uniform procedures, maybe suggest a way that it could be done? Not prescribing, don't prescribe, suggest.
We do mention there, like, for disasters and also for emergency responses, and only like shooting. Is that what you're asking?
Well, the reason I ask is because other schools have a risk management program for their faculty, saying this is what you would do in this situation. And I don't think it would be a bad idea if you
Okay, so you're going for like a unified, like,
Just a suggestion.
resource.
It's just a suggestion.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Stephen Ratman, Science Council. First, I think, before I ask this first question, I like where this is going. The only thing is, how does this tie into us representing the academic interests of students?
I think students were put at danger when the shooting happened about a month ago. Just because faculty, we heard different instances from faculty that weren't able to like respond appropriately to the shooting. Some faculty just didn't know what to do. Some faculty said you're still expected to come to campus for your 10 a.m. test when this happened like at 8:30. Some TAs were like, should we run? So it's just very like,
Yeah. I guess just to address that, it would be, in terms of academics, it would be, we're trying to get students to perform the best that they can, and how would we expect them to perform the best they can if they're maybe having some kind of psychological issue with it and their professor's forcing them to continue on with their tests. Obviously, they're not going to perform that well.
Okay, I think it'd be a good idea maybe perhaps to consider putting wording in there to identify that as, so that's why this isn't there's academic reasoning behind it.
Okay.
I have one other question real quick, or also I guess more of a suggestion. Something I think that would also be beneficial is not just resources, but perhaps asking for some sort of line of communication to be established. Because I think sometimes you can have all the resources you want, you can be as prepared as you want, but if you don't actually know what's going on, you can't necessarily react to it. And I think that would be most beneficial. I think it'd be nice to see us suggest perhaps some sort of communication, like emergency line of communication between faculty and administrators or UTPD, so that way when such an event occurs, they could be informed of that as soon as possible.
Just a point of information, I guess, or I'm giving you information. So like UT Senate 2 years ago, we passed a resolution on like gun control, and I thought that was relevant just because it affects the academic environment on campus. So I don't see this as too big a stretch in terms of providing safety, especially if it's going through faculty who probably are under our jurisdiction.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Emily Pullen, UT Nursing Students Association. It says here that you're calling for the creation of resources that specifically detail procedures. Who's going to be creating these resources? Because we have UTPD's resources, but you're saying that's inadequate, so I'm just wondering who's going to be creating these new resources.
Yeah, so basically UTPD could just expand on those resources and make them more detailed and geared towards faculty. I know with meeting with some of the UTPD members, they are ready to jump on board as soon as they get a call of action. I mean, yeah.
Any questions? Okay, take this back to your councils.
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a motion to reconsider removing SR 205 from the table to finalize any sort of additional amendments and to clarify the bill before we either vote on it or take it back to our council.
Okay, so there's a motion to take SR 205 off the table.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, with that, we will move back to SR
Okay, let's read it.
Management and Finance Council. I don't think this is a bad idea. I think faculty should be notified if something is brought to them, brought to the SJS's, onto their radar. Faculty have always been the sort of center of academic integrity, and removing them from that conversation, even sort of indirectly, would be a detriment.
Carl Thorne Thompson, Liberal Arts Council. I agree with that. My only concern is something that the authors brought up, and that's that, if there was a frivolous case made, if we did strike that under this wording, they still have to be notified of it. So if we're going to strike it, I think we need to say something along the lines of if the investigation could be taken further, because it's found to be credible evidence or something like that.
Alan Goldstein, Undergraduate Business Council. I just wanted to clarify why I thought this was important. I think we need to vote on any sort of final changes, and I think it would be great to take this back to our councils once we have any finalized amendments or additions to the bill. So I encourage the discussion of this, but I also think it would be wise to, based on any sort of changes, take this back to our councils after we vote on this amendment.
Just a point. We were planning on kind of creating a more detailed proposal with the kind of prototypes and things that we could propose to SJS by the end of the semester. So, if this resolution does pass, then we can start working on that. We welcome, obviously, all of the councils to contribute back to that more detailed proposal as well. And because SJS is not likely to take action if we just give them a piece of legislation, it's got to be you've got to give them more options, kind of based on this piece of paper, got to translate into something that they understand visually. So if it does happen, then it's very likely that we can finish the proposal by the end of the school year with the contribution from the different councils. But that's presuming if none of the councils really have anything truly against the resolution itself. But if you don't have anything against the resolution, I strongly encourage that we pass this legislation today so that we can start with the council's backings, working on this proposal that you can then, I'll have a look at before we submit that to the SJS by the end of the semester. And if that will kind of try to speed things up, might take another semester for them to go over this, and perhaps something might actually happen at the beginning of next school year, if we kind of stick to the schedule, ideal schedule. Thank you.
Yeah, so just going back to discussion and debate on this amendment, I think that it improves the bill, but Jingshen, I understand your point. The reason I would like to take this back to council is because it would provide us the opportunity to review the legislation as it is new, and frankly, Undergraduate Business Council voted against the piece of legislation before this amendment. It would also give you 2 more weeks to perhaps consult SJS and address some of the questions about cost, address some of the questions about how SJS would deal with students accusing other students, and what is considered adequate evidence to actually prosecute someone. Some of the other issues with this bill that can only be addressed in coordination with SJS. So I think that, our view is this amendment is good, but the bill could be better served by working with SJS over the next 2 weeks and allowing councils to consider it in the meantime.
Frankly, we don't currently, with the way that Student Conduct Advisory Committee is working with SJS, we don't particularly feel very confident of talking to them about the details of the form unless we have some kind of an affirmative from at least the majority of the councils. And if we want to get into the semantics of if, something happens or whatever that's been discussed as a business council, then I think that is something that's